It's Wednesday, the 29th January 2025. Let's take a look at the headlines making waves in Nigeria today. First, the Punch newspaper, the leading story, tariff hike. Subscribers head for court as NCC talks deadlocked. You can get complete story on page 29 of the Punch newspaper. And above the leading story from the right, 3,690 Nigerians listed as U.S. mass deportation continues. You can get the complete story on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. You were broke. Wike bankrolled your election. Dogara tells Bauchi governor. You can get the complete story on page 14 of the Punch newspaper. And below the leading story, letter of gratitude to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR for signing into law the act establishing the Nigerian Maritime University, Okerenkoko, Delta State. Dear Mr. President, we cannot thank you enough for this heartwarming gesture. You can get the complete story on the cover page of the Punch newspaper. Moving over to the next paper, Business Day, the leading story. Big story, how CBN's new FS code will enhance market liquidity. You can get the complete story on page 31 of the newspaper. And beside the leading story from the left, federal government's 10 years bond relies on 22.6% yield. You can get the complete story on page 31 of the newspaper. New Lekki Ajah rail line seen driving Lagos economy. You can get the complete story on page 30 of the newspaper. MTN Nigeria CEO confident regulate service quality. Deadline possible. You can get the complete story on page 30 of the newspaper. And above the leading story from the left, energy starved Nigeria flares most gas in 4 years. You can get the complete story on page 31 of the newspaper. Moving over to the next paper, Vanguard, the leading story. Trump's immigration policy. 5,144 Nigerians face arrest, deportation from US. You can get the complete story on page 5 of the Vanguard. And above the leading story, CBN to commence final settlements of $7 billion FS backlog, says Cardoso. You can get the complete story on page 20 of the Vanguard. Atiku, Obi, Erufai's attack on us pitiful, says APC. You can get the complete story on page 40 of the Vanguard. Federal government deports 828 illegal immigrants. You can get the complete story on page 8 of the Vanguard. How Wike bankrolled Bala Mohammed governorship campaign, says Dogara. You can get the complete story on page 9 of the Vanguard. And below the leading story, South governor declares support for Tinubu's tax reform. You can get the complete story on page 12 of the Vanguard. Governor Abiodun, groups oppose Sharia in Southwest. You can get the complete story on page 10 of the Vanguard. Edo governor poll. We are challenging 765 polling units results. PDP witness tells tribunal. You can get the complete story on page 13 of the Vanguard. FIFA 2026 World Cup. Veteran sports analysts give verdict on Super Eagles' chances. You can get the complete story on page 46 of the Vanguard. Moving over to the next paper, Daily Trust, the leading story. Confirm how to make 2027 polls credible, acceptable. You can get the complete story on page 4 of the newspaper. And below the leading story, letter to Mr. President. Letter of gratitude to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR for signing into law the act establishing the Nigerian Maritime University, Okerenkoko, Delta State. Dear Mr. President, we cannot thank you enough for this heartwarming gesture. You can get the complete story on the cover page of Daily Trust. Moving over to the next paper, Nigeria Tribune, the leading story. The letter to Mr. President. Letter of gratitude to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR for signing into law the act establishing the Nigerian Maritime University, Okeren-Koko, Delta State. Dear Mr. President, we cannot thank you enough for this heartwarming gesture. You can get the complete story on the cover page of the Tribune and above the leading story. From the left, Bala Mohammed nearly knelt down to collect money from Wike for his election, says Dogara. You can get the complete story on page 3 of the newspaper. 2027, there is an agenda to destroy opposition parties, El-Rufai claims. You can get the complete story on page 16 of the newspaper. Blackout, UCH still negotiating with IBEDC. Paying has not been easy, says management. You can get the complete story on page 21 of the newspaper. Afenifere confirms Dele Farotimi, new National Organizing Secretary. You can get the complete story on page 27 of the newspaper. Moving over to the next paper, The Guardian, the leading story. Expiration of exit notice. Worry over regional security. Trade in ECOWAS without Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. You can get the complete story on page 6 of The Guardian. And below the leading story from the left, federal government deploys single window system to recover $3 billion, meets $1 trillion target. You can get the complete story on page 3 of The Guardian. 2027, APC, Sani, Buala tackle Atiku. El-Rufai as Obi clarifies on coalition. You can get the complete story on page 6 of The Guardian. African leaders, partners commit $50 billion to improve power supply. Others, you can get the complete story on page 3 of The Guardian. And below the leading story, letter of gratitude to His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR for signing into law the act establishing the Nigerian Maritime University, Okeren-Koko, Delta State. Dear Mr. President, we cannot thank you enough for this heartwarming gesture. You can get the complete story on the cover page of The Guardian, and these are the headlines making waves in Nigeria today. If any of these headlines caught your attention, do get a copy of the paper to read the complete story.